Hey, Lloyd.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. My name is Ali Spalding, and I am with Prompt.io. So, welcome to your new AI intern, how to navigate Chat GPT for texting. I am going to just share a few things. Let's see here. There we go. All right. So, in today's political climate, we are no strangers to text messages. Often we ask ourselves, who is texting me? Are they human? Does it even really matter? Texting is fast and efficient, and it's cost effective, but who is on the other end of your text messages? So today we're going to be chatting with Lloyd Cotler and the principal of Banter Messaging, and Tamilla Mirzoyeva, the director of marketing and Prompt.io, to chat about Chat GPT and learning how texting skills, habits, campaigns can work with this newfangled technology. Um, as you can see, we'll go through some introductions, current state of AI, talk about script writing, integrations, applications, what to expect with the future of AI, and then, of course, a Q&A session with Lloyd and Tamilla. Lloyd is an early adapter of conversational marketing. He's worked with some of the biggest organizations to develop engaging and successful SMS marketing strategies. He's crafted thoughtful interactive text messages with Hillary for America, Random House, American Cancer Society, the Get Schooled Foundation, Susan G. Komen, the One Campaign, Viacom, and more. He is the principal at Banter Messaging, a conversational marketing firm. And of course, we have Tamilla here from Prompt.io. She brings over 10 years of marketing expertise to her role at Prompt, enhancing communication for political and nonprofit groups with advanced technology. As the director of marketing at Prompt, she develops strategies to boost engagement and impact all sorts of different campaigns. After a productive day, she loves to stay cool in Austin with margaritas and tacos. So I am going to hand it over to them. Make sure that you listen in. They have some really great tips and tricks when talking about AI.
All right, I can get started. So just want to touch base a little on like what the current state of affairs for AI is right now. So I think we're all pretty keenly aware that we're like in an election season. Uh, so how much is this actually like being used, right? And I think more now than ever before, people have like real experience with this. I think something like Quiller has been more widely adopted this campaign, and so a lot of smaller campaigns can kind of rely on that AI to help them, start with those first drafts of, emails, texts, all that kind of stuff. I don't think, by any stretch, it's the like majority of campaigns or organizations, but I do think it is growing, especially at kind of the levels that like national consultants don't see, right? Municipal elections, state representative or state senator kind of elections, where you're running a very small staff. You need to kind of keep up with some of those tools, but don't have necessarily organizational strength behind you to do that. So I think it's being more widely adopted so far in emails than texts, to be honest. But I don't think it's too far away. And I think a lot of places use those emails kind of as the first draft of the text anyway. So I do think that it's out there. It's not it's not happening for everybody. It's not everybody's thing yet, or maybe ever, but it's definitely more popular than ever. And I think a lot more folks have experience with it than ever before. So, I think though there are a lot of concerns, right? It's a new technology and there's always concerns with that. You want to make sure for lots of reasons, right, that there are a lot of concerns. You want to make sure that you're like giving accurate info to people about voting, right? That's really important. If you're running a campaign, you need to like actually make sure that people can vote for you. You need to make sure that your chatbot isn't saying anything that it shouldn't to prospective voters or donors or volunteers, stuff like that. There's always privacy concerns that you want to assuage for people. So those are kind of the basic concerns I think that we're seeing, and then of course like the labor concerns, right? Like the AI, kind of replacing jobs that should go to people, I guess. So, but I don't think that it is necessarily a replacement, right? I think what it's doing is like making your job as the marketer or the digital campaigner easier, right? You are able to, uh, use AI to just start an email from something, right? Instead of starting with a blank page, you're able to think more about. Oh, I'm sorry, Tamilla. This was your slide. So I'll turn it over to you.
All good. Yeah, I mean, Lloyd, like you kind of hit the nail on the head. The big thing again, thank you, Game Power, for hosting us, by the way. Really appreciate it. Really excited to kind of dive into this new tech. I think the main part about AI is that it really forces you to be solid about your fundamentals. So if you put in a very vague prompt with no parameters, no specificity, you'll kind of get that back. And so you can spend a lot of time on copy that doesn't actually resonate with your audience. And that's why you have to kind of, that's why we call this, this session, your AI intern. You have to train your intern. You have to give the AI kind of the focus and specific tasks around that. And something, fundamental, just good practices around writing is being able to answer the who, what, and why questions. The who will dictate your audience and tone. The more granular you can get, the better. Sometimes it seems a little awkward when you're writing the scripts. You're like, does it really need that much specificity? But the cool part with, especially with Chat GPT, is it actually remembers previous things that you've told it. So if you are kind of create this practice over time of being very specific and very didactic, it will remember that. And so the next time it will be even easier to get exactly what you're looking for. Another thing that I really like using it for is, taking that, so like like imagine you have like a really long prompt, let's say a landing page. You take that and then you ask it to provide it in different formats. So social media formats, social posts, a LinkedIn post, a text. And something that is really useful is to give you different options. So when you're writing this, give me 3 of these prompts or give me 5 of these prompts. A good tip here also is if you have stakeholders, right? So if you're working in an organization, if this is your first project you've ever done with AI, don't guess, I would say. have AI come up with just enough to get ideas going, and then take those ideas to your stakeholders and say, hey, which one of these is kind of directionally seems right before I go down like deeper path of writing all of this. And usually what you'll see is your stakeholders will be like, I like this version too. Or they'll be like, whoa, 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 none of these versions, like we just did this for, we just launched Pulse Data, which is our data product. And, you know, one of our sales team members was like, hey, what about absentee voters? It's such a big part of voter files. And I was like, oh, well, Chat GPT didn't know. I didn't know. And so I just took that feedback, fed it back into the model, and then it spit out exactly what we looked for. So that's kind of something also is like, you know, I will say that AI solves for choice, you know, gives you more choices, you can write more, but it helps you start, but it actually makes it worse to end. So you can spend, you know, all afternoon fine tuning something that is missing a major point because you're not incorporating feedback. You're not, you know, you haven't produced enough versions to kind of figure that out. So I would say look out for that. Another thing is A/B testing copy. So that's a really big one, especially if you have, you know, you start your campaigns early, which is like the golden rule of thumb. There's never too there's always too late and there's never too early, you know. And the thing is, if you give yourself realistic deadlines, you can use ChatGPT to really truly actually run the A/B test that usually you don't have time to write the copy around. So that's around that. And then, you know, my favorite one is the shortened copy. Like I love taking webinar scripts or long form blog posts or articles that inspire me or landing pages that like our team toils for a week writing, and then using that and then reformatting it into other stuff. That is like, I think is like one of the golden ways of using ChatGPT. So I will pass it. Oh, things to consider. So things to consider, I would say, are the major one is that we, you know, when ChatGPT starts writing for you, we get kind of lazy. At least I do. And it's really easy to stop fully reading and analyzing the copy you're writing. And so you get into this like copy and paste mode where it spits out some stuff, you lightly glaze through it, and then you paste it. And sometimes it will put weird words that your industry is not using. It will say things that aren't really true. Like it's straight up, like if it doesn't know the answer, it makes it up, which is kind of dangerous, you know, especially like if you're on a big campaign or if you're working for an organization where like you have approved copy or like language that you're using. So please, please like remind yourself, like write a sticky note and be like, read my AI copy, like actually read it, like read it for understanding. A/B testing, I kind of mentioned. And then, you know, double checking for bias. Sometimes it will say things that are just like way like it like creates its own opinion too sometimes. And so that's, you know, really like, again, that goes back to like actually reading what it writes and being like critically thinking, being like, is this what I actually want to represent? Because, you know, once you kind of put your name on this copy, people think you wrote it, right? So you're going to have to go back to, you know, stakeholders or like whoever and explain to them, no, it's not my opinion. I had a robot write it, but I didn't read it. You know what I mean? So I say, you know, if for your own sake, read the stuff it writes, just, you know, as a good practice. And then, you know, I think the repetitive part is awesome. So anything that you see yourself kind of spending a lot of time doing, that's when AI is like, I think, and ChatGPT fills into great. It really pays attention to your tone of voice. So the more you can feed it your kind of style, your organization style, the more background you give it, the better. And it's not really scary. And I'm sure, you know, folks have kind of started using it day to day. And if you haven't, like, we you know, we'll give our info at the end of this as well. But it's not scary. But but it is, it can be a little bit getting used to. So back to you, Lloyd.
Awesome. So I think all of that is definitely right. And then I think the big other place where there's a lot of opportunity to use AI is in actually replying to people. I think, anybody on this call who has like gotten a text from a campaign, that they didn't sign up for, if you reply to it, 99% of the time you don't get a response. Even if you did sign up for it, you might not get a response. And that's, bad. Like Ali mentioned in my lovely intro, I'm really all about conversational marketing. If people are getting messages from you, they should be able to send messages back to you. They should be able to build a relationship. They should be able to look to a text for like trusted information. So having AI, to kind of be that first draft of replies is just amazing, right? And is going to take so much time off somebody's plate to make replying to those messages, actually viable, where, this becomes a channel that's not just spamming people, that's not just sending out, endless one-way messages, but is actually really engaging people. So there are a lot of uses for AI in that like response area that I think is really a lot more interesting than like having AI write my text message, right? I think actually having it start doing stuff with the replies is where you'll see the biggest return in terms of like supporter response and like a lot of inefficiencies in what you'd be doing otherwise. So using AI to like route people based on do they want to volunteer? Can I route them to a field person and cut down the number of steps between them expressing intent and actually like getting plugged into an event? Do they want to donate, right? Can I figure that out? Can I get them to the right donation page for whatever demographic they are? Are they a major donor, right? I'm not going to send them to a donation page that has like a $5 option. Frequently asked questions, right? Stuff like that. How can I check my voter registration, right? We can build these replies that will just make the life of the person who's replying a lot easier, that they can kind of start with that first draft of those replies or route those messages to the correct people right away and really cut down the friction between people responding and getting actual helpful replies. You can also really think about it for like I'm sorry, can we go back one slide, Ali? So you can also think about it for stuff like personalized content, right? Being able to at scale, have different, variations based on things like regional, dialect or regional issues, even, right? If I want to send something about, agriculture issues, but those agriculture issues aren't the same in, the Midwest as they are in the Mountain West. So you want to think about how can I use that for some personalized content? Can I do personalization based on some kind of self-identification, right? Can people tell me I'm, women for candidate or, students for a candidate, right? And get back, those kind of personalized resources, toolkits, even potentially like graphics and like share stuff, right? That you can kind of direct that pipeline from them replying a text, telling you about themselves to, giving back, hey, I'm a, student for Kamala or something like that. So I think that's really another really cool option to explore that would otherwise like manually be really, really difficult. And then I think the thing I talked about with inefficiencies is like a better understanding of opt-in and opt-out. So, if you're having to go through every single reply like that for opt-outs, right? You're probably setting filters, right? You're probably using like a profanity filter and assuming everybody who replies like the F word gets opted out. But there are lots of people who reply back like, F yeah, I'm so excited for this, right? Stuff like that. And you want to be able to like actually detect that enthusiasm, right? You don't want to opt those people out. Those are your most enthusiastic supporters. So, having AI being able to differentiate at a glance between, F you and F yeah, That's a big difference, right? And that keeps the most engaged people on your list. That doesn't accidentally opt out people who are super enthusiastic for what you're doing. They're confused, right? They get that opt out message and they're just like, I said I was excited, right? Why are you not excited that I'm excited? So really being able to get a better understanding of like how people reply, fine tune some of those filters, again, route people based on like how they're replying, I think is really, really important, and kind of the big place that AI will make the lives of digital practitioners easier rather than like worrying about being replaced by it. So there are definitely some other, use cases, right? Beyond that, I think stuff like just for brevity, right? I think a lot of people have difficulty writing messages in like fewer than 160 characters. It's something I've been doing for 15 years. I'm pretty good at it, but like a lot of people have trouble with that, right? What's the main idea that I'm trying to convey here? So having, Chat GPT, like Tamilla said, give you a couple of options that are fewer than 160 characters will just like keep your costs down, right? You don't need to send a 4-segment message when one will do generally. So, being able to cut down to the most important idea in your message. Planning for user errors, right? I think is another really important place where AI can come in, right? We can only kind of think in our own narrow, worldview, right? Like this is how I might reply to this, or I might misspell a keyword this way, right? But AI having the benefit of, right, absorbing all of that info from people who are not just you, will be able to kind of like detect some of those other blind spots. What are possible misspellings of this? How would a phone autocorrect this potentially? Because in different places, right, like I mentioned, some of those different dialects, people are going to have different autocorrect formats, stuff like that. So being able to just think about like the myriad ways people could make a mistake, right? Or just not, follow the flow you have laid out, will let you better plan for those user errors and make that journey for that person a lot more seamless, right? Again, cutting out a lot of that friction, making sure that like they're actually doing what they intend to do, not necessarily the narrow, path you've laid out for them. And then I also loved Tamilla's example of like, make it funny, right? Or stuff like that, right? So thinking about how to like write for different audiences. I think this is like a really undervalued skill that's really difficult to master, right? Being able to kind of switch. And I'm not even talking about like anything scandalous. Writing for older people is much different than writing for younger people, right? Something like that. Being able to, have AI give you even just different formats, right? I think older people just write in very different styles versus, what we might think of like Gen Z machine gun texting, right? Something like that is very foreign to an older person, right? Who would write one long message. So just thinking about what are those different audiences? How do I take the thing I'm doing and meet people where they're at with it, rather than try to make everybody meet me where I'm at? So, again, thinking about those different, what's a like fun word, like an affectionate, a term of affection, that's what I'm looking for, in different places could help you think about those different, just ways to format things. And then even taking that a step further into like segmentation, right? Asking the AI to think about what are the different segments on my list? What are different ways to target people? What are some of the things these people have in common potentially for me to tie together like different disparate segments and make, something new, right? So, thinking about stuff like that, I think is really, really not where people's minds go generally when they think of like, oh, we need to add AI to our toolkit, right? They think more of AI is going to generate the first draft of something. AI is going to write our press releases. AI is going to like write our emails, that kind of stuff. But really, right, like the title of this, session, right? It is an intern. It should be helping you do something, not replacing you, right? You're the one with the expertise. You're the one who's going to take what, those prompts that you give the AI, you're going to take that and turn that into an actionable plan, right? You're going to take that with the other stakeholders and tie that into everything else that's going on. You're not like turning over the keys to an AI. You're asking it to just make your life easier, more productive, helping you scale things, save costs in some places, right? Like I mentioned, cutting down the length of the messages, not opting out people who were potentially donors, right? Stuff like that. So, really just thinking about it outside of the very, narrow, this is going to write a first draft of everything for me. This is going to, run my voter contact, right? It's not going to do that. It's never going to do that. A person's always going to do that. So, thinking about like, how do we take this technology and use it to make our lives easier and make our supporters, more, included in what we're doing. And, like I said, have those like relationships, really, because the more time your team has to actually like talk to voters, the better, or supporters or donors, and this is just helping you do that.
I love that you mentioned, Lloyd. I think that's something, we don't think about until we get the relief, right? Like, I didn't realize how much content asks I was had been getting per day. And usually it would just like bring, it would just be like such a big part of my day. And it would just feel such a repetitive kind of small things, but then needed to be done. And now that, I use Chat GPT to kind of speed up the reply process, I get to do more creative part of my job and more fun and things that kind of I find more passionate. And I think that's something also to think about, especially if you're in communications or, building out these campaigns. What's that fun part of your job that you really want to focus on? And then start delegating some of that more repetitive part to ChatGPT. Like, so I love that you brought that up. What to expect? So I'm an optimist about AI. So just that's my. I'm just gonna say I think it's a beautiful tool. I still think it's a tool, and it's in a very early stage of infancy. We're already seeing a lot of regulation kind of conversations. There's a lot of about, with the elections, there's, people are very closely paying attention of spreading of misinformation and all of that. I think that is definitely going to heat up more and more, especially as more things are on the line. Using AI, especially copyright, is going to be another topic that's going to be very, very highly contested, definition of copyright and using content before that. Where I think we're going to see a lot of niche AI tools, Lloyd, if you want to kind of talk a little bit cooler, I haven't, I know the founders, but I don't know how it's currently used. Would love to hear a little bit how are you using it?
Yeah, I don't actually have personal experience with it either. I've not used it. I just, know that it's a little more widely adopted at this point on some of the smaller campaigns, doing a lot of that kind of first draft generation. That's at least the pitch, when I've seen them do the pitch, right, is like, don't start with a blank page, right? Put a prompt in. Quiller will kind of give you a first draft of stuff to take and run with. Of course, it's trained on not the Chat GPT LLM. It's kind of its own proprietary LLM for, left progressive democratic stuff. I'm progressive, not material, I guess. Stuff seems fine.
Things and stuff. So ChatGPT on the phone, I actually have their app, their mobile app. It's incredible, especially the speak to dictate function. It it's just incredible how much it picks up. You can do either, you talk into it and text comes back, or you talk into it and it talks back. That one is still, it picks up most, but sometimes it's a little off, and sometimes it's just faster. But the voice to dictate is incredible. Sometimes I'm like on a walk with my baby and I get an idea for a campaign or something, and I literally ask it. I'm like, hey, like, what about this? Or make a note about this. So I think that is really amazing to watch. The marketplace, the plugin marketplace, if there's any folks on the call who are, on the developer side or, are working for organizations, there's just a huge marketplace that's come out for all kinds of plugins. I definitely am fascinated about the next generation of GPTs that are going to be built. And I think a lot of them are going to be niche, like built on a database of an organization in a very conversational way that people can get the information and also just take out that like huge tech debt when it comes to data management and stuff like that. So that's my little future. And I think we're segueing to Q&A.
That is correct. All right. So we do have a couple of questions. Let me just pull these up right here. The first one, which I think we've talked a little bit, but in terms of best use cases, it sounds like someone asked about.
I think we just did a really great job answering everything.
Yeah. So I feel like that feels like very much that. Someone did say, will it replace my job? And I think you all have also kind of mentioned, like, it's really more about training, right? It's not about the actual job.
Correct.
Yeah. And then additionally, just in terms of P2P, how do you sound more?
Is Allie frozen or am I?
No. Can you hear me? Sorry. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. The question is that in terms of P2P, how do I use it to still feel authentic when having those P2P questions?
You want to take that one? I don't. Wait. So P2P texting. Okay.
Yeah.
I can figure out
how to stay authentic with P2P texting using Chat GPT. I think you really touched on the tone and the audience, but if there's anything else that Lloyd wants to add in, obviously more than happy to. Lloyd, are you still with us?
He looks frozen. Oh.
Hold on. It looks like his Wi-Fi has been lost. Just give us 1 second. Day and age of technology. There we go. Welcome back, Lloyd.
Sorry about that.
No problem at all. The question was how to stay authentic in P2P messaging while still using Chat GPT. I feel like you touched on some of that, earlier. Tamilla talked about tone and audience. You talked about sort of the segmentation. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's kind of the whole thing, right? Is how to maintain authenticity with it, right? And that's why I kind of talk about it more for generating those replies than like the initial copy. And you want to just, so in my experience, right, the programs that I've worked on this with is the AI never sends anything. It generates that first reply draft, and then a human is still, involved, right? A human is still making edits before sending. Nothing goes, automatically. And so really easy to, make sure that it does sound like me. It's taking, the drafts from what I've written in the first place. So it does, kind of have that tone. And then, thinking about like, you're still directing the tone in the prompt, right? Be cheeky, be serious, be professional, however, you want it to kind of sound. And then, I think Tamilla also really touched on, or not touched on it, but really actually made a strong point about it is like, read it out loud, right? Like it really, have to make sure to like, look at, not just, assume what comes out is the right thing, is, going to hit the mark. the first time, 100% of the time. But the great thing about it is that it does learn as you go on. So as you make edits, as you give it feedback, it will continue to get better in that sense. But and I think also just kind of like, don't take everything to like the most logical outcome, right? So when you are doing like segmentation, when you are thinking about like, do I personalize this, or how do I kind of customize this for different audiences, don't I'm trying to think of like a really like pandering example, right? If you're sending texts to people in California, hey, are you hella excited about this election, right? Like, you can kind of tell if you're pandering to people, or you're using it, using those kind of tweaks, or using those kind of like particular segments in an authentic way, right? And I think some of that comes down to what I mentioned with like the format differences, right? Again, if you are targeting older people, you're going to want to use an authentic format for talking to older people versus kind of the machine gun texting. So just thinking about it, not taking it to such an extreme, that like every text I send to Louisiana is like written with some French, right? Like it doesn't have to be that far down the rabbit hole in that sense, but thinking about it just like a little more like, I currently do this. What's like the one or two next steps I can take it versus what is the like 10th step beyond that I could take it.
Sure. And I mean, speaking about that, obviously, there are a lot of trendy social media and pop culture references that we're seeing in text, particularly, we're seeing a lot of the Charlie XCX Brat Summer information and pop culture, and how do we stay true to having those pop cultural experiences but not coming off as cringe, really is the question.
I mean, I think this is just, again, goes back to doing, it's like measure twice, cut once.
Yes.
And it's better to kind of create a little bit of content, test that content with your audience, see if how it resonates, ask people, again, like now the main thing with AI is that it frees up your time to do more deeper, more strategic work. And in that case, you can really nail your messaging by digging deeper, or creating more versions than you could. And I think that's a really big part of this whole thing, is freeing up your time to do more complex works in that. Yeah.
Okay. Great answers. If anyone is interested in contacting Lloyd or Tamilla, you can scan the screen right there to keep up with them on LinkedIn. I know Lloyd especially likes to post examples of what not to do, which we do appreciate, I think, in this day and age. And Tamilla is always sharing some really great insights. So I think if you're looking for that content, you're looking for just some extra spice, these two are definitely people you're going to want to follow. Thank you so much, Gain Power. Thank you, Tamilla. Thank you, Lloyd. We really appreciate taking the time. And yeah, have a great rest of your day. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.